Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. It's important to establish healthy boundaries and personal limits in all aspects of your life. Today in the rLounge, these stories serve as a testament to the universal challenges we face in maintaining our emotional well-being, highlighting the importance of self-respect and fostering relationships that enrich rather than deplete our lives. Up first, sometimes all we need is a scented candle. Am I the a-hole for abandoning my mother-in-law in a parking lot full of watching people? I, female 26, am a stay-at-home mom, and I pick up my daughter after school. My husband, male 35, takes her to school in the mornings on the way to his work. Mother-in-law got divorced a couple months ago and not so subtly complained to my husband that she was lonely, so my husband insisted that we have her over every weekend. Mother-in-law and I don't get along. For example, mother-in-law has always made snide remarks about me being a teenage mom, but I learned to ignore it since my husband asked me to keep the peace. When she began coming over, she would make comments about how dusty the floor was, how much laundry was in the basket, etc., hinting that I should be doing more housework as a stay-at-home mom. The final straw was when she commented about our daughter's academic abilities, saying stuff about how she's below standard academic level and blaming me for not putting in the effort to teach her. After a big argument, my husband finally agreed that only he would visit mother-in-law at her home. Mother-in-law and I haven't spoken to each other since. Mother-in-law's catalytic converter got stolen yesterday and hasn't gotten fixed yet. My husband drove her to work this morning and asked me to pick her up. I said no. Mother-in-law works fairly close to our daughter's school, about a 15-minute walk. In the middle of my day, my husband sends me a text saying that he convinced mother-in-law to walk to our daughter's school so I can pick up both of them. I arrive at my daughter's school and see mother-in-law with daughter. I walk up to them and tell mother-in-law that she can find a way home, that I'm not going to give her a lift. She started to create a scene and the other parents and children were starting to stare, so I took my daughter by the hand and drove away. Husband yelled at me when he got home, saying that I embarrassed mother-in-law in front of the other parents and left her stranded when I could have easily driven her home. It really wouldn't have been much work to drive her home one time, and I'm regretting causing a scene at my daughter's school because her classmates and their parents might have seen it. Am I the a-hole? Let's get some votes from the community. First one, everyone sucks here. You should have an adult conversation with your mother-in-law about your boundaries and how you won't tolerate her demeaning you with her comments. The state of your home and your child's education is not her business, and she can leave those subjects alone. But instead, you make your point by leaving her at your kid's school without any way of getting home. I get it. She's a pain in the butt, but acting like a child doesn't help the situation. Your husband knows how you feel. He knows how his mother feels, and still put you in a position of having to drive her home. You all suck. The next person votes, not the a-hole. I was going to go everybody sucks here, but then I realized your husband was an adult who knocked up a teen and then let his mother treat his wife horribly for years. You said no. He heard no. He manipulated you anyway. Your mother-in-law has spent years trying to humiliate you. I'm not going to call you an a-hole when you finally were able to draw boundaries. She knows full well what she was doing all those years. Your husband knows too. He just doesn't care. This has always been a husband problem. He doesn't stand up for you and doesn't care that you said no. He still thinks you are a teen and he is the adult, and therefore he can manipulate you. He would rather keep mommy happy than respect you. There's a reason older guys are with younger women, and you are feeling the repercussions years later. You have matured and are better able to stand up for yourself, and he just doesn't respect that. The comments honestly make a great point. You made your boundaries perfectly clear. You said no, and your husband said no. You're not the a-hole here. You're simply advocating for yourself, and no one's going to advocate for us but ourselves. Update. Hi Reddit. Sorry the update took so long, but I just signed the last of the divorce papers and wanted to share this with the sub. I took the top comments advice and tried to have a conversation with my ex-husband and his mother, but they both just yelled at me and would not listen to anything I said. My ex-husband even went back on his agreement to not invite her over. Apparently this was my punishment for disobeying him and embarrassing his mother. For a few months, I stayed with my best friend on the weekends, and she convinced me to divorce him. But because I was a stay-at-home mom, I needed a steady source of income. Early 2023, we started a candle-making business on Etsy. It was really rough for the first few months, but we began to gain traction, and I finally told my ex that I wanted a divorce after I felt financially stable. He said no, but I had already worked everything out with my lawyer. After I sent him the papers, he and his mother began harassing me, and he said that he would agree to divorce only if I gave up full custody of my daughter. Long story short, this ended up in us both going to court, and I now have full custody. My best friend is the real hero of the entire story. She let me stay over for free throughout the proceedings and helped me care for my daughter. With the alimony and the money I made from the candle making business, I officially moved in with my best friend and began paying her rent too. I'm currently saving up to buy a place of my own. My daughter and I are really happy right now, and I can't believe that I didn't see how toxic my ex and his mother were for the 7 years we were married. I hope this is enough drama for the rest of my life, and thanks to all the people in my DMs who showed me how toxic my relationship was. This is such a beautiful ending, OP, and your best friend is truly such a gem. She truly has your best interest at heart, and it's so cool to hear that you started a business together. It's unfortunate that your ex-husband and his mother chose to respond negatively, but it's clear that you made the right decision for your own happiness and well-being. Wishing you all the best in the journey to buy your own place and continue building a fulfilling life for you and your daughter. Remember, your story can inspire others going through similar challenges. Thank you for sharing your update, and here's to a drama-free and fulfilling future for you. What do you make of this? Next up, know your rights. Entitled neighbor doesn't want me to make any noise in my own home. Apparently, a new person moved in below me sometime in December. I, 23 female, was gone for most of December, so I had no idea until I got back home from celebrating the holidays. My first night back, I had a friend spending the night. I'll call her Clara. We weren't being too loud, but we were chatting and catching up. She went to her car to grab something, and an old man stopped to talk to her. I'll call him Richard. He asked her if we were throwing a party. She said no. He then said he kept hearing loud banging sounds, and that we needed to be more mindful of the people living below us. Okay. Clara got back and told me what happened and asked if I had spoken to Richard before. I told her I hadn't. Soon afterwards, he knocked on the door. So for some context, I'm neurodivergent. A man I don't know knocking repeatedly on my door late at night really freaked me out. I was also wearing pajamas. Because of this, Clara agreed to talk to him for me, which I was thankful for. He went off on her. He said he had been hearing banging sounds for weeks since he moved in. He keeps hearing weights dropping. I don't lift weights. He hears things drop at midnight and 2 a.m. He even said that he could hear whenever I flush the toilet. Creepy. Also, I hadn't been home in weeks. At one point during the conversation, my cat tried to escape and I had to run over and grab him. This will be important later. Richard has left me alone for the past 2 weeks, though sometimes at night while in bed, I would hear banging on the walls or floor. Unfortunately, he came back tonight. I decided I was going to tell him once and for all that I wasn't making noise. It didn't go well. I tried telling him that I'm not the one making noise. He said, "Yes, you are. I hear sound, then I see you leave in the morning. Then I hear sound again when I see you come home. You drive, type of car and color, right?" What the F? Okay, he's now admitted to watching me, and he knows which car is mine, and I honestly don't know what the F he is hearing in the morning other than me walking and putting on my shoes. I'm not an early riser. I sleep as late as I can, then wake up, get dressed, and leave. I'm not doing morning workouts. He also tried to catch me in a gotcha moment. He said, "Last time I was here, your lady friend said you couldn't come to the door because you weren't dressed, but I saw you come grab your cat." Yes, sir, that was correct. I was wearing pajamas, not clothing I wanted you to see me in. He kept going on about constant banging, saying he needed to be awake at 4 a.m. for dialysis, and that he needed sleep. Then he finally left after saying he's not trying to be a jerk. I'm at a loss. I don't know what banging sound he's talking about other than me walking. And complaining about me flushing the toilet? Seriously? My cat is 18 pounds, not obese, just massive frame, and he runs and jumps around when he gets zoomies, so I wonder if he's hearing him? Regardless, the apartment allows pets, and Thunder is an ESA. I should be allowed to walk around in my own apartment and flush my dang toilet without worrying I'll piss someone off. I will no longer answer the door if he shows up, but unfortunately he's admitted to watching me, so he knows my schedule. If you don't want to put up with footsteps, animals, and toilet flushing, you should not move into a pet-friendly apartment complex. Gross. This is such an invasion of privacy. He's being totally creepy. You have every right to live peacefully and comfortably in your own space. It might be helpful to document each interaction with Richard, including dates, times, and a brief summary of what was discussed. This could serve as evidence if the situation escalates and you need to involve your apartment management or, if necessary, law enforcement. Update. Hi everyone. I appreciate all the support I got on my last post about my neighbor, Richard. I wanted to give you all an update, but it might be a little disappointing, unfortunately. I called the office and told them about my situation, and they told me they were going to call him and tell him not to interact with me and to make any complaints through them. This seemed to improve things at first, but he unfortunately decided to start banging on the ceiling whenever he felt I was being too loud. At first, it wasn't that bad. 1 or 2 smacks randomly, easy enough to ignore. Like in the first post, several smacks occurred when I was laying in bed. Last night, he escalated it. It was around 10 or 11 p.m. I was walking around my apartment a little. I had a bad cord, and I was trying to find a different cord to replace it. He started smacking again. I ignored it, but he kept doing it, and was slowly getting more aggressive. It was starting to freak me out a bit. At this point, I wasn't even moving anymore. I was sitting at my desk. Then, he got pissed and full force punched the ceiling. I think I counted 7 times in a row. It was bad enough to make the place shake. I was really scared at this point, so I did what my mom and most of Reddit told me to do. I called the police. Unfortunately, they weren't very helpful. Here's how the conversation went. Has he threatened you in any way? No, not directly. He's been told to not knock on my door, and now he's being really aggressive with hitting the ceiling. I can't do anything if a crime has not been committed. The ceiling hitting is really scaring me, and he's admitted to watching me leave and come back before. Things like this are part of apartment living. Him watching you was likely him just trying to figure out the source of the noise. I can talk to him if you want, but at that point, he will know you called the police, and that might make things worse off for you. I'm not saying you are making noise, but I've had to speak to my upstairs neighbors before too. You don't live below anyone, so it can be hard to understand. I do live below someone too, and I hear noises sometimes. Then you know what it's like. No, they make sound, but it isn't bad, and I just ignore it. Like I said, I've had to speak to neighbors before too. Yeah, but your neighbors were probably actually making noise. At this point, I started to cry. Unfortunately, it just happens to me sometimes when I'm really stressed. I was just trying as hard as I could to keep it together to be able to speak. I know things like this can be frustrating. I can talk to him if you want. No, you just told me that would be a bad idea. I never said that. At that point, I just wanted the cop to go away. I told him to leave, but asked him to let the record show that I felt unsafe in my own home. This morning, I contacted the office again and had a very interesting conversation. They told me they had spoken to him and had indeed told him to make any complaints through them and not talk to me. They also said that him watching me leave wasn't meant to make me feel threatened and that he never intended to follow me, but was an observation he brought up when I had tried to tell him I wasn't home when he was complaining about sound. I told the office that he had been complaining about sound from when I wasn't there, that I had been gone for at least half the month of December. Well, apparently he told them I had had a friend over and she had likely been making the noise when I was gone. Are you effing kidding me? Clara was there for a single night. He is legit making up stories in his head now to make things make sense. The office is trying to be a middleman in this situation, which I guess I understand, but it is aggravating since I know I'm not making loud banging sounds. I told the office about my current theory that the loud banging sounds are the heating system coming on. It would make sense for the heat to be more likely to come on when I enter the building and let in cold air. Correlation does not equal causation. The good news is that he is not allowed to be banging on the ceiling like he's been doing. The office will be telling him to stop, and if he does it again, I will report him every single time. I will be keeping a log of everything. Sorry that this update probably isn't very satisfying. I'm very tired and shaken up, and the police department isn't helpful. It's a very lonely feeling. I understand everyone trying to be impartial, but it just makes me feel so defeated, like nobody believes me. Update. I wrote this all out yesterday, and in the time it took me to write it, he banged on the ceiling again, despite the landlord telling him that isn't allowed. I called them again, and they said they would do something. Not sure what, though. I'm so sorry, OP. This whole situation is not only freaky, but it's frustrating as hell. It's so emotionally draining when people don't help you out more in situations like this. It really feels like your complaints and concerns are falling on deaf ears. This sounds like an extremely dangerous situation. Is it possible to move? Even though you haven't done anything wrong here, and you shouldn't be forced out like this. It might be your only way to protect yourself and eject from a possibly really horrible situation. If not, familiarize yourself with tenant rights and local laws concerning noise disturbances. If the issue persists, you may want to consult with a legal professional who specializes in landlord-tenant disputes. Not only that, but if the police are unhelpful, you might want to explore other avenues, such as talking to a different officer or contacting a non-emergency police line for advice. What would you do? Have you had a similar experience? Share it with us in the comments below. Lastly, the dynamics of a one-sided friendship. Am I the a-hole for giving away my friend's baby shower gifts that I got her? My friend, 28 female, has always been less fortunate than me, 28 female. This is pertinent to the story. It never bothered me, I valued her friendship, and I happily paid for outings, and I would drive up to an hour to visit her some weeks. But throughout our friendship, I always felt used. She'll call me to hang out, and then when I got there, her car broke down, and she needed someone to take her to the shops. Or she'll say she's going to pay for something, and then, when we get there, her wallet was always missing. Small things like that. Then she got pregnant, and for a while we were actually very close, because we both always wanted to be mothers, and I think losing my job bonded us a little more. 3 months later, I got a new job, and she suddenly just stopped talking to me. I think she was jealous because she's been job hunting for 4 years now. It could be a lot of things, but I kept reaching out, asking her about the pregnancy, when we can visit and such. She always either blew me off or responded a week later. I asked her before Christmas what she wanted as a gift for 1, Christmas, and 2, the baby. She wanted the Revlon Curl Brush hairdryer for herself, and then, for the baby, she sent me a list of things that I could choose from. I bought the Revlon thing and then a few things for the baby. A lot of diapers, clothes, necessities, and I bought this play thing that was a little expensive. Please note, I can absolutely afford it. The previous job I lost because they were bankrupt, so I had a lot of presents for her. I called her before Christmas and asked what they were doing because I couldn't visit my family on Christmas Day, and I wanted to know if she and her boyfriend would come over and we could do Christmas together. So she knew I was alone on Christmas Day. She said she and her boyfriend were doing something with his family. I was like, okay, that's chilled. We can meet up in the new year. The day after Christmas, I see a lot of pics of her and her boyfriend visiting one of his friends 15 minutes away from where I live. I asked her why she didn't tell me. She was like, oh yeah, she forgot about me. We didn't really speak after that. She rolls up yesterday and calls me out of the blue asking me if I wanted to go to her baby shower this Sunday. I tell her it's a little bit late notice because it's my dad's birthday on Saturday and I was planning to go there. She said my dad will understand if I leave on Sunday because she needed a lift to the shower anyway and no one could take her. And she really wanted all the gifts that I bought. I asked her how long she knew about the shower. She literally said 2 months. So I said I'll think about it. Proceeded to return the hairdryer, the expensive baby plaything, and I gave away all the diapers and clothes and other things to a women's shelter because I decided that I'm done with her. I messaged her that I won't be able to make it, and she messaged me back when she can expect the presents then. I told her I gave them away. Proceeded 10 missed calls and a lot more messages calling me a witch. And I know how she needs those things. So I was being the a-hole when I did that. Edit. To everyone mentioning that I'm self-centered, money-centered, and that I made this post for attention, you got me. But for real, I made this post because I felt guilty about giving the things away, because I do know that she's struggling to get a job and her boyfriend doesn't pay very well. So all the nappies could have been needed. I have guilt about that. I'm so sorry if reading about my finances is a bore. Let me just say, I know how blessed I am, but I also know how hard I've worked to get what I have. I didn't receive a full ride to uni. It was on scholarships. My parents were not well off, but they did make slightly, not a lot, more than hers. If that sounds bad, I'm sorry, but I was put into this position where I do have the financial means to pay for things. I know I'm lucky. I also know that it can be taken away from me in a flash. Never once did I throw my money in her face. Never once did I ask her to pay for anything. I know this is very hard to believe, and maybe I do see how my post comes off as being a money-centered witch, but I always just wanted to hang out with her, be a friend to her. If you have any advice on how my post can sound any better, please let me know. But I've read so many posts here on Reddit where people complain about how much they had spent on someone and how little money they had for it, just to come out later that the person complaining was never having hardships. I can afford the gifts I got her. If that makes me a terrible person, then sorry. Let's check in with the community opinion. First up, sometimes when you need to get rid of a user, you have to burn a bridge. You did that. Good. Now you can be free of her. Not the a-hole. Next opinion, not the a-hole in the slightest. This is a one-sided relationship. No need to waste your time, energy, and money on people who only care for themselves. All you ever expected in return was compassion in her time. She showed you through her actions she doesn't care. I'm disappointed on your behalf that she waited until almost the last minute to invite you to her shower because she expected you to drive her. You gave and gave until you had nothing left to give. I've been in a similar situation. Same as you, I cut the person off cold, after putting up boundaries and being told they were conditions, and happily haven't looked back. You're an amazing friend and deserve to have friendships that build you up too. I adore that you gave the nappies and clothes to a shelter. It speaks volumes to the kind-hearted person you are. My motto is, choose quality over quantity. The OP replies, thank you so much. I think the fact that I know she's struggling is making me rethink everything, but I got more appreciation from strangers than I ever got from her, so it was definitely the right choice. Next opinion, not the a-hole. Question though, you bought her a very nice Christmas present. Did she ask you what you wanted, and did she then purchase it for you? This relationship is just very one-sided, and good for you for finally removing the negativity from your life. The OP replied, she told me she couldn't get me anything because they were broke and the baby was on the way and all that. And listen, I get that. I've never asked for a thing from her, but I do realize that even if she made homemade cookies, it would have been something from her side. You are absolutely positively not the a-hole here. It sounds like you've been a generous and supportive friend throughout your relationship with her. However, a friendship should be a two-way street, and it's clear that she hasn't reciprocated that effort or consideration. Your decision to return the gifts and donate the items to a women's shelter is a positive and compassionate move. It's important to recognize when a relationship is not healthy for you and to prioritize your own well-being. While it's understandable that she may be going through a challenging time, that doesn't excuse the one-sided nature of a friendship and her lack of consideration for your feelings. You've taken a step towards setting boundaries and prioritizing healthier relationships, and that's a commendable decision. What do you think? Is OP the a-hole here? Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell before you leave. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic, so feel free to leave a comment. See you next time in the rLounge.